And welcome to My 3 Minutes, another episode of a local Scarborough, Maine podcast. And it's been a very interesting week. Many of you may know about the Wednesday meeting at the town council when the primary topic of discussion, if you can call it that, was this new tax increment financing TIF deal for a very large number of acres in the Dunstan Corners area of Scarborough, basically straddling Route 1 in Scarborough in the Dunstan Corners area. And I think it's really worthwhile to take and talk for what this is all about for more than 3 minutes, which is very much what those people running the meeting allow. 3 minutes. They have the timer, they have the red light and the green light. And at one point, the chairman of the town council actually said, "Hey, keep in mind, I let that person go beyond their 3 minutes and, don't clap. No applause. We can't have applause for people speaking. That's not appropriate." Really, it's our town. And there seems to be a disconnect from what I saw in that meeting between the people that sit at the front table on the town council and especially the town manager, Tom Hall, and their voters, taxpayers, and residents of the town of Scarborough, Maine. I was shocked, to be honest, that at some point during the public comments period, which was one after the other, town residents, taxpayers going to that microphone and listing reason after reason after reason for not doing another TIF deal in Dunstan Corner. Just to tick off a few, and this is, it was really kind of amazing that people very well spoken, but I would say one of the biggest things, and I'm going to deal with this more in this 3 minutes, 3 minutes of mine, than what was dealt with there. But there were a litany of, call it complaints or concerns about another TIF deal. One was criticism of the existing TIF deal, specifically in the Downs, and their credit enhancement agreement. And stay tuned because I'd like to just talk about what the TIF is and what the credit enhancement agreement is. I'd say that most people, and I made this point in my 3 minutes at the town council meeting, that if you have an agreement that's talking about transferring millions of dollars, and this is now up to nearly $100 million of taxpayer money to the developers at the Downs over 30 years, something of that scale and that impactful to the town, one, it should have been voted on. It was not. The town council rammed it through. Two, every single voter, every single taxpayer should be able to understand what it is. And I guarantee you, and I made the point, and I would encourage everybody to go, if you're watching this, I'd encourage you to take the time to go to the town council website, go to the recorded sessions, and go to the meeting on Wednesday where they raise this and just go through and watch the comments and the 3 minutes from I have to say at least 20 or 30 people, and it may be more. I actually had to leave after it got late and it was still going. But the thing that really gets me is that I raised is that most people don't understand how this whole deal works. They have no idea. And two, I don't think the town council or Tom Hall do either. And the point I raised is if you are so smart on this TIF deal, how come 7 years ago when you pitched this to the voters in Scarborough, you told us and this is in writing, you can go back and find it, that over 30 years, that credit enhancement agreement, which is a kickback agreement, it should be start with a K as in kickbacks, kickbacks for developers. 40% of all of the taxes collected, property taxes collected in the Downs, 500 acres of property in that huge development, commercial, residential, 40% of all of the taxes collected are kicked back to the developers, the Mishu and Risbera families. Their children will not have to work, their grandchildren will not have to work. Legacy wealth at the expense of taxpayers in Scarborough. So most people don't understand this. They said it was 30 million over 30 years. Here we are 7 years in, and we are already projecting over $100 million in kickbacks. And they're just getting started. The faster they build it out, the quicker they get to that 40%. It's very simple. 40% of taxes on $100 million are going to be a lot less than 40% on taxes of $200 million. So if they can build that project out as quickly as possible and raise the valuation as quickly as possible, that's more years over the 30-year project that they get to get their kickbacks and higher. And that's where we are. And it is only, I believe it's going to double. And over that 30 years, we're going to be seeing over $200 million be kicked back to the developers. They'll be getting checks for $10 million in later parts of that deal every year after they've already built and moved on, and basically they're living in Florida or wherever it is, and they're already not spending a lot of time in Maine. So, and in Scarborough. So that's the biggest thing here is that nobody knows how this stuff really works. I'm going to try and explain the best I can so that people do understand it. But what we had in that meeting was one after the other of people stepping up, and they talked about growth. They talked about the egregious, permitting that's been done, the 120 apartments in 8 corners that's going to absolutely snarl traffic, and it's ugly, and it's almost across the street from 8 Corners Elementary School, which is going to be a problem getting kids in and out of there on buses and so forth. You've got, Walmart and all the rest out there, and it's just going to be a snarl. And now they're adding to it. There's another right up Payne Road, there's another development that's just about to kick in. And this stuff just keeps building. And people have been saying, stop the rapid growth in town. Now they're talking about a new TIF deal, which is going to attract more developers. And oh, we haven't got any deals actually lined up yet. My ass. There are developers in the wings waiting for the town council and Tom Hall to slip this through, and then they come out of the woodwork. And this TIF deal allows up to 100% tax kickbacks. In other words, we wouldn't collect a dime from projects. That gives the town council, a small group of people, 5 people if you want to be exact, the ability to award somebody millions of dollars in tax increment, credit enhancement agreement, kickbacks. This should not be in place. This should not happen. And I made the case that if everybody in that audience and the average taxpayer in Scarborough didn't understand how this deal worked, they should not do it. Then you had people, again, traffic, growth, the whole credit enhancement agreement itself. Peter Hayes, a former council member, made the point that, and you can go and see this, he very articulated it very well, probably better than I will, but all of what left, the 60 cents on the dollar that they do collect in the Downs, that is not the 40% kickback to the developers, that 60 cents does not go to the general fund. It goes into a special TIF fund for development and projects and expenses in the TIF zone, which means the developers in the Downs keep all of the money inside the Downs. Meanwhile, they sold this, and this was raised also. Oh, the Downs, that's just going to be a commercial development and, senior housing and there's not going to be any kids there. There's not going to be any strain on the school system. Well, they're wrong about that too. There are lots of kids out there going to school, and it's costing every one of you, the taxpayers of Scarborough, $21,000 a year every time one of those kids walks into a new school. And if you think that 1,200 units, residential units, which is somewhere where, last I heard, in the Downs is not going to produce hundreds of kids over time, then I have a bridge to sell you. What is happening here is that what they told us when they sold us that first bill of goods on the TIF deal was $30 million over 30 years, blown away. Probably going to be, it's already 100,000 or 100 million, excuse me, $100 million of our taxpayer money kicked back. And I believe over time it's going to be 200 million. And so that's not even close. They totally botched that. Then you've got the school kids strain on the schools. They're wrong about that. They've been wrong about everything. Meanwhile, the traffic is just becoming a nightmare and everybody knows it. So they're also paving over a lot of land and putting a lot of coastal impact on runoff and everything else. When I see storm drains, oh yeah, we're collecting all that storm water and all those curbs. When you see a curved road, which is all through the Downs, all those curbs do is funnel all the surface water. Instead of just having sidewalks and grass strip between a sidewalk and the road, which is environmentally much more sound, and allowing the water run off the road to then leach through the grass, be filtered, and all of those bad things that come off the road, the grease and oil and all the other stuff, that ends up funneled when you have curbs into a storm drain, which everybody knows about, and that gets funneled en masse into the marsh, period. It's got to go somewhere. In a lot of cases, it runs off and it goes into the marsh. So all of these things were raised. There was not one even close to supportive comment for this TIF deal. And yet, I watched those counselors, or a couple of them absent, probably for a reason. I watched those counselors just sit there, just basically ignoring every single person at the podium. I expected, based on that kind of turnout, one, there were more people than ever at that meeting. And then every single one of them, one after the other, after the other, after the other, voicing concerns. Absolutely do not. I want you to vote no. Everybody against this Dunstan TIF deal. There's a group formed, there's signs around town, and yet I expected one of those counselors, at least one, to sit up and say, I move that we vote now. They're going to put it off and they're probably going to, try to sneak this through. It's mind-boggling that they are even considering the TIF deal now. Mind-boggling that they would even think about this after that meeting, if you were there, and I encourage you again to go listen to it. I just cannot believe that somebody didn't sit up and say, I don't think there's any need for moving this forward anymore. I move that we vote now, and vote it down. But nobody did. It makes you wonder who's running the town. Is it the town council or is it Tom Hall? I believe, from what I've observed over these last few years, The town hall runs the town council. The town council does not manage town hall. It's the reverse. We work for town hall. I have said this before. I think it's time for a change in Scarborough based on the failures of what's happened to the town with traffic, with taxes continually going up and up and up, and especially with that TIF deal that was made with the Downs developers. It's egregious. It's going to cost us for the next 20 plus years, and it's going to cause a lot of issues in town. You know, infrastructure changes. Oh, yeah, we're doing a traffic study. Well, what's that going to be? It's going to mean we need $50 million to put more roads in and traffic lights, and we're going to have traffic lights all the way to the far reaches of town because of what they've done. And this is just unbelievable that we're even having these conversations, that this is even being considered at this point. But it is. And I believe they're going to vote. And there are going to be at least some, if not a majority, of those town councilors are going to go ahead and vote for this. And that has to make you wonder, considering the universal objection to this TIF deal. Universal. So just wanted to get this out. And I wanted to spend just a few minutes because, as I said, most people don't understand how the TIF deal works. I'll give you my best shot because I'll be honest, it's very confusing and very smoke and mirrors like. They don't want you to know how it works. Confusion breeds theft. That's what can happen. I'm not saying it is. I will say that Tom Hall bought a condo in the Downs development, which to me is a conflict. We don't know what he paid for it. We don't know any details. He owns a condo in the Downs. He should have never done that. So, regardless, what this entails is they call it a tax increment financing zone. Its idea is to attract developers. So they establish this area, this zone, in the case of the TIF zone that encompasses the Downs development. You have the Downs, and that goes all the way into basically up Route 1 and into the area in the main around Town Hall and so forth. And the idea is, oh, we're going to encourage development because developers can come in and get this credit enhancement agreement. So within that TIF, you can get a kickback for your taxes, a tax break. And they say that this is, just encourages growth. And now, okay, now that land that didn't have a lot of value, now it has a lot of value. So our tax base goes up. They kind of forget about the part where they're only collecting 60 cents on the dollar. And so as a result, is that growth really beneficial? All the costs that it entails, policing, fire, support, the Downs doesn't go to the general fund. Not a dime of taxes in the Downs go to the general fund. And yet we're going to be on the hook for plowing, trash collection, and all the other things that the town does. Some of the roads aren't incorporated yet, unincorporated. It's all private until they turn it over to the town, but that's going to happen. And then we're going to be on the hook for maintaining all those roads and taking the trash and all the rest for thousands and thousands of people in the Downs that we are for 30 years not going to be paid for. That's going to be up to the other people in town. Now they want to do another, I think if I remember right, 230 plus acres in Dunstan Corner and take that in effect off the tax rolls and leave it to the rest of us to cover that. Again, the whole idea being, oh, we're developing the town, so we're bringing in development, business development. It's bringing in all these new tenants and these new businesses, and that's going to drive the towns, you know, going to have employment and all the rest. My question is very simple. If Scarborough, and this was raised again by someone in the audience on their 3 minutes, I have more than 3 minutes here, so I can go into a little more detail. But you have a situation where if Scarborough is such a great town, which they're always saying, why do you have to use incentives to get people to come here? People should be paying the town to develop here and then just collect the taxes real simple. Instead, we're doing this very nefarious kickback agreement and saying that, the Downs, you think the Downs would not have been bought by a developer and developed into something a whole lot nicer if we had just left it as is, no deals. You build, we'll permit it as long as it meets the codes and all the rest of it. We'll let you develop that. They bought 500 acres for $7 million less than 7 years ago. Do you think that a developer today or 7 years ago, if it had been left to them, if it had been put up for sale, it's unimaginable that there would not have been developers that said, I'll do that and we'll do this really beautiful development. What we have now is not beautiful, and everybody agrees, except the people who live there, I guess. But regardless, that was the whole intent, is to encourage development by giving them this tax kickback deal. 40% in the case of the Downs. Now, they established those kickbacks on an individual project by project. It's just unfortunately the Downs was one developer who took 500 acres and said, we're going to do the whole deal. And this is the deal, 40% off, 40% kickback. That's the credit enhancement agreement, which is a fancy name for tax kickbacks. Now, they say there's a real benefit to the town because when you do a TIF zone, all of the properties in that TIF zone are not subject to the county tax. So the town and the townspeople have a smaller county tax. My question, and I raised this in my 3 minutes the other night, does that mean that the county expenses, the cost of the county doing business and providing the services that they do with jails and roads and other sheriffs and all the other county expenses are also reduced because we're not paying them? Somebody has to pay it. It's called other towns. Pass it to somebody else. Is that right? That's not a very good plan. So that we can make a few developers rich, we're going to pass along the expenses to Buxton, or, well, Buxton's York County, but Cumberland County, which is Portland and South Portland. And what do they feel about that? That their county taxes are going up because we're taking hundreds of acres off the county rolls. That's not a good deal. And then there's the school funding formula and the fact that that zone, those TIF zones, are off of the formula for school funding. So that reduces the town's valuation, total valuation, and therefore school funding, we can get more school money. Well, let me ask you this. Do you know how school funding works? Go explore, go spend a day, a week, a month. You'll not figure it out. And the benefits they're telling us we haven't in the past, and we probably won't in the future. It's all smoke and mirrors. The bottom line is the bottom line for developers, period. That's tax increment financing and credit enhancement agreements. Meanwhile, they want to do more. And it's unbelievable to me that we are in a situation where our town council, after that meeting, are even considering doing this TIF zone in Dunstan Corner. I believe if they go ahead with this after what I witnessed and what everybody that was in that room witnessed, if they go ahead with this, something's shady as can be. They're not doing the will of the people. They're not representing their voters, their taxpayers. Something's up. And here's the deal. I believe that every one of the councilors, if they do this and vote for that TIF deal in Dunstan Corner, whether it passes or not, any councilor who votes for it should be recalled immediately. And once that's completed, Tom Hall should be let go. Terminate his contract, do not renew his contract, and find a town manager that has the best interests of the town and the town's people in mind. And is going to, and if in some effects it's too late, the growth explosion is already done, but it's not too late to at least try to address it honestly and try to limit the damage that's done and try to manage the town in a way that is going to preserve our way of life here in Maine. So that's my 3 minutes for here in Scarborough, Maine. And I hope that you will share this. People need to know what's going on. I think there are far too many people in Scarborough that have given up, that have just thrown up their hands and say, Tom Hall runs the town. Rocky Risbera is the mayor, doing whatever he wants. Obviously, he pulled that whole thing off and he's being written large checks every year. And that's going to continue for another 20 plus years. And there's nothing we can do, so we'll just go along. That's not a very good way to look at it because at some point you can't go along anymore. You go along all right. You have to sell your house and move because you can't afford to live here anymore. Or you just can't stand it anymore with the traffic and the ugly and what they've done to this small seaside town of Scarborough. So share this. Encourage people to go to the town website and watch that council meeting that occurred just a few days ago in Scarborough and see what for yourself the comments. And it would be very enlightening for a lot of people to see the comments, which were informed, well spoken, and very diverse on all of the negatives of these, both the past with the Downs TIF deal and what they're proposing for the future, the Dunstan Corner TIF deal. This is just one example of the town council ignoring their voters. This has been everybody that's been paying attention knows. They tried to pass the library expansion, which was outrageously expensive, and that got blown down badly. They tried to have a unified school for K through 3, whatever it was, primary school in the Downs, no less. And that was defeated substantially. They aren't listening. And I don't believe they're listening now on this TIF deal. And if they move forward with this, I think the only remedy is to remove them, recall the town councilors, replace them with like-minded councilors that are going to support the taxpayers here in Scarborough, and then give Tom Hall his walking papers. Not all agree with that. A lot of people really like Tom Hall, but he's a nice person. That's fine. He's not a good town manager. What he's done is put us on a path that is not going to benefit the taxpayers and residents of this town in any way, shape, or form. Not at all. Traffic and all the things that come with overcrowding and expensive, school costs, all the rest. It's not sustainable. And we're going to continue to lose seniors that can't afford to live here, lived here substantially their whole life, and their taxes just keep going up. When taxes are more than your mortgage, you have a problem. And there are some people in town that have that situation. So that's what I have to say on my 3 minutes. Again, I hope you'll share this with everybody you know in town, your friends and family. Share this, encourage them to go to that town hall meeting and watch what was said, and really be ready for what comes next. Because I think if this continues, we're going to have to act as a unified community. We're going to have to speak up. We're going to have to step up, and you're going to have to encourage your neighbors and friends and family to do the same, because you can't just let this keep going. And it's evident that the fact that they're even talking about this TIF deal, considering the pushback and what the reaction has been, tells you everything. They're not representing us. They're just not. And it's time to make it abundantly clear. I don't know how much clearer you can make it, but it's almost belligerence at this point, and it's unfortunate that they're not listening to the people in town. My question is, I have no idea who elected these people, because I can't find anybody that supports this. And yet, here they are moving this process. It should have been summarily shot down and said, no way, no way, we're doing that. But here we are, we're still having a conversation, which is just mind-boggling to me. So that's it. Do your homework, share, spread the word, share my 3 minutes podcast today, and hopefully people will have some insights into what's going on. Appreciate your time, and talk to you next time.